lot of you know by now, I love the look of timber, but I'm going to paint this door behind me for the simple fact that you can see the sun. It gets the sun almost all day. It's not going to last. For those of you who don't know, a clear anything will not stand up to the sun. And that's why this is happening here. Now these are second-hand doors. I got them from somewhere else, but you can see, and it was already like this, but you can see what the weather does to it. And its new position now, the whole door won't take long before it ends up just like that. I'm going to paint it the trim color that I've got already on the entire tiny house. But on the inside, the trim is clear. Again, because I like timber. So where do you draw the line between the clear and painting a different color on the doors and on that door frame? Well, let me explain. First of all, I don't even think I should have to mention it by now. When it comes to hardware, don't paint around it. Take it off. Look, you all know by now how many times I said, if you're going to paint something, take off the hardware. So when you put it back on, it looks like a professional finish. You don't have paint all over this and all over these little door catches. So when it comes to the inside, you're standing on the inside and you're looking at the door. Everything that you see has to be painted exactly what you're painting on the interior or on that side or in that room. And on the outside, everything you see has to be painted the trim. But when you open the door, okay, that's where it gets tricky. But it's rather simple. If you open the door, you see the internal edge, and the internal edge will be painted as how the inside is painted. On the outside, this is your outside edge, which is the external edge, the side that opens out. So when you actually open that door and you're standing out here somewhere, you see the trim color, and so you stop it, the trim color, right there on that edge. But how do we get that perfectly straight without rolling in or slopping that paint over that? And that's what this video is about. I'm going to show you how to make an absolutely perfectly straight line every single time, and it's going to go super fast. And I'm going to just give it a good rub with 120, and this is going to get you, I'm not using an undercoat, no primer. Just putting a water-based, low sheen exterior acrylic. It's not going to come off, even though I'm not going to use a primer undercoat. If I was going to oil these doors, then yes, by all means, you're going to have to use an all-purpose or general-purpose undercoat before you put on your enamel. The timber will actually expand and contract more so than the oil-based paint, and that's why oil-based paints, they start to crack and they start to peel off. Some of you will be thinking, oh, he hasn't taken the doors off. You're right. Now, normally I would recommend you take your doors off. These doors are so heavy, I'm not about to take the doors off. I'm all by myself. I haven't any neighbors. For whatever reason you don't take off your doors, I'm going to show you a really nice way to mask your hinges. It won't work with every single hinge out there, but for most part, this is where we're going to work, and it's going to work a treat. All you need is some masking tape and one of those one-sided razor blades. The first thing I paint is the actual frame that holds the doors. And in this particular case, because we're painting only half or the exterior part of the frame, we're going to paint this little tiny lip here. Make sure you have a rag ready. Make sure it's cotton. Cotton t-shirts work the best. This is a cotton sheet, so it'll work just fine. Make sure that that's got to be ready to go before you start painting. I slop the paint on that one edge. I don't worry too much about going over the side of it. And this is one of those places where I even scrape most of the paint off. Okay, so if you got a good brush, you can paint, you can cut in right past the hinges. And even though this one here is masked, you really should get in the habit of still trying to cut that in. Can you see that? There's paint all over that. It's pretty bad. And this is where I usually use my thumb, and I just wrap my thumb somehow, just like that. So you got a nice smooth edge. You don't want it crumpled up like that. You want it nice and smooth. Okay, and then wherever you start, top, bottom, middle, make sure you have the same angle and the same amount of pressure, and you go just down along that edge. And you might have to pull it away. You see how it's getting the paint off there? And you might have to just change your position on the rag. Get a nice, another bit of clean bit. And you do the same thing. All the way down. And then the stuff that's even further, then I come back and I wipe that off nice and clean. I will get a close-up, but that is now an absolutely perfectly straight edge, straight line along there, without one speck of paint on your interior bit. With that one that's taped, I'll still cut it in, maybe just years of habit of cutting in things. Even if you give it a go cutting all this in, give it a miss if you bought cheap brushes. They're just not going to work. They don't do what something like this brush is designed to do. The bottom is exactly the same, so let's get a close-up of that and you see exactly what I'm doing, real close up. With the entire frame now first coated, we're ready for the doors. And as always the edge first. And since we got to paint this edge, here we want that nice straight line again. And we want it super straight. And it's exactly what we've just done. And I'll just show you here. I would paint the whole strip to show you guys. So it doesn't matter if you roll the paint over. It's looking pretty bad, and I'm just going to close this door so it's going to be easy for me to fix that. So again, wrap your thumb. Now here on this edge, I try and cut this one in, and then I check the other side of it. It's not as critical as the other edge because this one stays closed, you know, unless you got someone that's gonna open your door all the time and go, oh, I'm gonna see if there's any paint on that inside edge. Oh my gosh, look at that. No one's gonna do that. And because I'm cutting it in, it's perfect, it's fine, but you'll want to check it. So if there is paint on there, you can wipe it off with that wet rag you've got. So you can see that. Perfect, absolutely perfect. Not too worried about how it's going to cover. It's not going to quite cover. It'll look okay, but I can tell it's not covering. So don't worry too much because you know it's going to get 2 coats of paint. Okay. I've done the second coat. It's exactly the same process as the first coat. Goes a little bit smoother, a little bit faster. But let's just recap on everything. Some of you may have picked up on the fact that I put water base over an oil base paint, which is the polyurethane. And I'm always telling you, don't ever put water base over oil base. Two reasons. One, I know what's going to happen here, and that's just from experience. But so that you guys can understand the polyurethane that was on there, and you saw the bottom, it was coming off. But the rest of it's at least 10 years old, if not 20, 25 years old. So I know that it's already like pre-etched, almost like pre-primed in a way, if that makes any sense. I know for a fact that this is going to last 5 years, if not 10 years. It's not going to come off. If you have any doubts, then put an undercoat on there and use an oil base, all-purpose undercoat. It's another one of those exceptions to the rule that you can put water base over oil base. And the reason for that is that the oil base is going to really stick to this stuff. You're guaranteed it's going to stick, and your water base will stick to the oil base undercoat. The hardware is all back on, so it looks absolutely brand spanking new. That's a nice finish. And remember, the trick to get really straight lines, you have that wet rag, and it's got to be fairly wet, not dripping wet, but it's got to be fairly wet. And I'll show you these. So that right here, it's just perfectly straight lines. You can't see them. It's perfect. And when you open all this up to look at all that in the frame, it looks professional. Nice, really clean, straight, tight lines. So I'm very happy with that, and I hope you got something out of that. I've got some really good stuff in the pipeline coming your way. One of them is a website with all kinds of goodies on there. The other thing is, look, hit that like button. If you like this, you think this was great, hit that like button. That like button gets it out there, recommends to other people, so we help other people. Consider subscribing to my channel. It's a library of just information, so you can't go wrong there. Even if you're not painting right now, or you know somebody that's painting, hit that like button, subscribe today. I'm Rick Bushell, and this is Invincible Painting Basics.